G'day everyone and welcome to 7 Questions, a podcast that shares the stories and compelling lessons founders, investors and leaders shaping our economy. I'm your host, Wayne Gerard, founder and investor at Partner and co-founder of Create Financial. Through 7 Questions, we explore the founder journey, idea to legacy, uncovering the insights, lessons and defining moments that shaped each founder and the amazing business they built. Whether you're a first-time founder, serial entrepreneur, investor, or someone looking for insights on entrepreneurship and what it takes to build a world-class company, these conversations are designed to inspire you, get you thinking, and hopefully you'll find some timely wisdom that propels your journey. G'day everyone, welcome to this episode of 7 Questions. Today I'm joined by Alex Knight, founder and CEO of Advanced. Advanced is an R&D tax incentive loan company. As you know, R&D loans have long been an important part of the capital stack. Accessing non-dilutive capital early in a startup's journey can extend your runway and enable smart founders to invest more in R&D and also in growth. I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Alex. He shares a number of insights and there are some great takeaways for both founders and investors. If something stands out for you, please take a moment to share your thoughts in a post on LinkedIn, and we'd love you to subscribe to our YouTube channel so we can impact more founders. Enjoy the conversation with Alex. Hey, Alex. It's great to have you on the pod. Welcome, mate. How are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here. Good to chat.
So let's start by helping people to get to know you. Who are you, and what experiences or moments shaped your founder journey?
Yeah, good question. So who am I? I'm Alex Knight. My official title is founder and CEO of Advanced, and you can find us at getadvanced.com.au. But really I started my career as an accountant after, going through university, and I actually had a startup at that time. When I look at what experiences or moments like shaped my founder journey, it's been a pretty broad mix, right? I always thought my career would be public practice accounting, going through that sort of corporate ladder, but found that, that sort of world and kind of linear growth wasn't for me. And I always had the ambition to do more. I think that ambition really stemmed from probably our own family journey and particularly my father's. You'd ask him, but he wouldn't say he's an entrepreneur. But the reality is that he has started, built, sold, and bought several businesses as well. Starting off from a young age, being a refrigeration mechanic and then building several trade and construction manufacturing businesses and exiting successfully. And I think that instilled on me pretty early on in my career. And when I was in public practice after uni and working with lots of different clients and businesses and seeing a broad range of businesses, it kind of lit the fire of, hey, there's more to, doing what you do than just doing accounting, transactions, tax services, superannuation, group structuring for people. And I really wanted to get in and really operate a business, but use that financial skill that I had and took that into venture and took that into finance and funds management. And then obviously found my way into founding and having some moderate success and exits in a couple of finance businesses, which has landed me here where I am with Advanced and setting off on this journey.
Alex, fantastic. What a great background. This podcast, 7 Questions, is really an opportunity for you to tell your story and for me to help you do that by asking you a couple of questions that will draw insights out about you, the founder, and also about your business and why you started it, what problem you're solving, where you're going, that kind of thing. And so the idea behind the podcast is to help our audience get to know you and ideally think about ways that they could collaborate with you. So we'll start with the first question, which is, what inspired you to start Advanced and what specific problem are you solving?
Yeah, great question. What inspired me first to start Advanced was I kept seeing incredible Australian founders and businesses all hitting pretty much the same wall, and that wall was capital. And I felt different forms of finance and capital were slow and rigid and didn't really fit part of the journey or fit certain types of businesses really well, but didn't fit other types of businesses that in their own way are really great businesses. It might be deep tech or have certain elements that, some financiers just don't find attractive. So with that challenge, I wanted to really redefine what capital could look like in terms of like speed, flexibility, and what it actually meant for these businesses. I mean, I thought founders shouldn't have to survive on crumbs or long processes of getting venture or other sorts of finance or sell a lot of their company just to get to that next milestone. So what we do and the sort of the challenge or problem that we're solving is that capital pathway. And Advance, what we do is we unlock the value that founders have already created in their business, particularly through their R&D refund asset. And we give them access to that earlier. So that means that they can double down on what they're doing, they can scale quicker. But what it actually does mean is that they can use our capital towards progression and more innovation. And if that means more R&D, they actually increase their refund and increase that refund more than the cost that we charge on the line as well. So, it's a great value prop and great benefit for them. But it all stemmed from really one simple inspiration. And that was really to help more founders and more companies go from 0 to 1 and scale at that next milestone quicker without having to give away too much of their company and really amplify other sorts of financing they did have by getting them even further with our product.
We used R&D tax loans for years during the early days of Redeye, where our directors literally loaned us a percentage of the R&D we'd accrued. And so I'm really familiar with the concept, and it's super great to see Advanced in the market offering a service that is both, an important part of the capital stack and an important solution along the capital pathway. Also, it's non-dilutive, right? I think the ability to get access to non-dilutive funding for early stage companies, especially when early stage companies have, like you said, a hardware software mix or they're in a deep tech area that takes longer to build up traction and therefore confidence in investors. The solution is really necessary. And for a long time, the R&D market, we were like, for example, I was on the board of Startup Oz, and we literally lobbied the federal government to make R&D payments quarterly. And they just said they couldn't do it. And so, a solution like yours is a great way to help founders scale. Alex, let's talk about question number 2, which is what's the unique insight or the secret sauce, the difference in your approach that you're taking to solve this problem, and how does that set you apart from your competitors in the market?
Yeah, for sure. Try and give you some background without giving away all our sort of proprietary knowledge that competitors might see. But I guess our main insight is that R&D finance and what we do in this product and ancillary products associated with it isn't really just a funding product. It's actually a founder and it's a management team experience where most of our peers sort of act like banks or, treat it like a transaction and a commodity. We really look to act as partners in the build. So really our secret sauce becomes speed, creativity, and context. We understand, we're not, specialized in one particular area of a sector, but, we understand science, we understand financial runway, we understand the founder and entrepreneurial mindset and the journey that you go on, and we design our funding around that. So where competitors might deliver, slow and rigid, we deliver fast and precise. And where they have a template, we might, we offer leverage and we offer that context. I've always said financials, numbers on a page, they're all black and white, but we see the world in color. So there's all this context that we need to understand. And that's where sort of creativity and capital aligns in what we do to help these businesses. And we're not sort of just here to lend, right, and do a transaction. We're genuinely a partner that want to help people make a bigger impact and use our product to make impact ourselves. So we use a portion of our fees to actually give back to different impact initiatives. And we're members of Pledge 1%, but frankly, we give more than that. And more than 20% of the deals that we have done have been to diverse founders. So that means female founded or co-founded, Indigenous or migrant founded. or even some regional businesses. And that's, 20% might not seem like a lot, but when you compare it to venture stats, it's tremendously bigger. And I'd love to see that get to even higher and more than 50%. But not because it's like a KPI, but because that's, real innovation, and it's backing the people who are breaking the mold, because they don't come from just one background. It's diverse, and we need those diverse skill sets and those diverse entrepreneurial mindsets to build great legacy companies. So I guess if we boil it down, like, we like to call ourselves the professional rebels of capital, and founders typically resonate with that because, we're not just looking through spreadsheets. We're not just putting a rigid credit mindset on it. We're actually going, hey, what are the challenges you're facing? What is that milestone? What is that journey? And how do we really develop a solution around that while keeping within our, credit and underwriting frameworks, but really being a partner standing side by side with them.
I imagine having your financial background as an accountant yourself, and also having startup experience and funds management experience, gives you this ability to put in place pretty good systems and processes for managing credit risk and assessing organizations quickly. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. I'm pretty privileged that I did come from an accounting and finance background, because I can understand the numbers and the processes and how like that mindset thinks as well. But when you overlay that, the founder journey and some previous businesses that I've had and managed to exit, and being on both sides of the table of helping founders in their management team as a CFO raise capital, being an early stage venture fund and deploying capital, I can kind of understand the different mindsets and perspectives of it. So I think, if I look at my own career, I guess I'm uniquely positioned in a business like this because I have got that venture experience, I've got that founder experience, but then I've also got that finance, funds management, credit risk perspective. And credit is a very different mindset than it would be for an equity, because you're always looking for that outlier. Whereas credit, you're really looking at, how do I ensure that I can help this business to grow, but really not lose my capital? And it has been beneficial, but it has brought up its own challenges too, like any business, because at the end of the day, we're a startup that funds startups, and it's an exciting place to play. We see some great businesses and meet some great people, but ultimately we're a startup scale up that needs our own processes, frameworks, go-to-market strategies, building product, tech. And, we've lived and breathed that day to day, in addition to writing funds to companies as well.
I'm thinking about this, and I'm trying to think about it from an investor's point of view. So an institutional fund manager or someone that might be wanting to participate in the early stage ecosystem from a capital perspective, but maybe venture is not the right capital product for them to put their money into. So, if you thought about a super fund, for example, why would a super fund benefit from investing into, say, your loan book?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it aligns really well with one of our core values and the way that I've viewed financial markets over time. I guess to answer the question directly, like, why would they benefit? Because we're getting exposure to the innovation and venture ecosystem, but we're doing it through a credit product that is a federal tax legislation backed product. So, the program's been around 12 years, about $4.5 billion refunded to 13,000 companies every year, give or take, changes a little bit year on year. And if these companies are doing genuine R&D and genuine innovation and keeping all the right records and doing the right stuff, that refund is really a timing thing. And we help them bridge and amplify that time in terms of speed over time, not delays. Where it becomes interesting for an investor perspective, and is why I was really attracted to this business as well, is you can get a pretty good risk return on it. I mean, if companies are doing the right thing and you do a really good underwrite, it's not an easy business by any means to run, or it's not an easy business or product to underwrite, because you really need to understand tax. You really need to understand finance. You need to understand R&D. You need to understand how the government, the ATO interface with companies. You need to understand how Oz industry interfaces with companies. And then you've got your accountants and your R&D advisors that are part of that stakeholder pool as well. So you've got these like different mishmash of mindsets and everything like that. From a pure like financial instrument point of view, it is a very attractive return, although it's a capped return. So you won't get, your outliers and your multiple on investable capital like you would in early stage or later stage venture, but you can make a good rate of return by a solid credit product in the innovation ecosystem. And it's typically a segment of the market that you can't take credit in because a lot of these companies are unbankable. And what I mean by that is, they might be less than 2 years old, or they might be a cash burning scaler. And when a typical big four bank looks at them and goes, this is not a creditworthy business, but they forget about the asset there in the R&D, which is a good thing because it's why we exist.
Yeah.
And hopefully it stays that way.
Mate, I think it's an exciting opportunity for institutional funds like super funds to have a mechanism to participate in the early stage innovation ecosystem in Australia. It's a de-risk way as well for those kind of funds to participate, and it allows them to deploy one check into you guys and you guys to then manage the process and deploy that capital out, much like they do as an LP into a venture fund. And so maybe just an alternative exposure and opportunity. And hopefully there's some super funds listening that might pick up the phone and have a chat with you. Mate, let's move on to question number 3. Let's move on to question number 3. And it's really a question about the lessons you've learned as a founder. So what's one of the hardest decisions or biggest challenges you faced as a founder? How did you face it and what did you learn from it?
I think what's some of the hardest decisions or challenges I've faced as a founder is, and 2 things kind of stand out really. And the first is really balancing speed with discipline, particularly in the type of business that we are. Like lending or doing R&D advances requires really robust systems and frameworks, but the opportunity that we see and the ability to help companies demands pace. So it's navigating that tension of building fast and getting more companies, helping more companies, but underwriting responsibly. So that has been a challenge. The second is really figuring out how to show up where founders need us most. So what was really important to me in starting this business is that I could see the impact that our product has directly on companies because it increases their refund, increases their net cash, increases their speed and velocity. But I wanted to do it in a way that also created impact to the companies that we were funding. So, how to show up, which rooms to be in, which networks, which moments matter that can actually change that founder's trajectory, choosing where to invest our time because we are a small team and we're a founder-led business, and sort of our presence and energy to create really the biggest leverage for founders. And while, most would look at that and go, oh, it's in the capital cities where most of the startups are, that wasn't really true to our core values. So really getting out into the regions and supporting regional businesses, supporting diverse founder businesses, that was really important. But that was, a hard decision to look at and go, okay, from an economics point of view, what makes sense for the business, but what aligns to our core values. And while we do some activities and events and different promotion or different education pieces that might not make, true business return on investment sense, it really brings a broader impact return on investment for us, which is really important.
There are stacks and stacks of amazing companies in the regions and solving really, really important problems, whether they're tech-specific companies like ag tech companies or climate tech companies, or even industrial tech companies that are working in some of the larger manufacturing industrial bases, which are often regionally based. So I feel like, supporting those industry sectors is worthy and also can be really profitable, right?
Yeah, 100%. There is some really capital intensive and CapEx heavy businesses in the regions and some of those sectors you mentioned and ones that we really like. So, advanced manufacturing, industrial, some good bio, clean energy, climate tech, renewable energy. Like there's so much there. Space tech and defense is interesting as well. And so much more actually we see progressing over the last few years. So we've been lucky to really support some of those businesses that I've mentioned in those areas. And we continue to push into rural areas through different events like Invest Rural down in New South Wales or Tropical Innovation up in Northern Queensland, and really just even getting to those regional areas to connect with founders and educate them on what this product can do and what the R&D tax incentive does. Because there is a little bit of under-education in the market. granted. And that's a thing that we want to change. And it really comes back to, cost of capital, right time. How do you grow a business and do that in a way where you don't have to dilute as much? And yeah, we will continue to support businesses in that area. And we see that as a really strength in what the Australian economy can do and really employ lots of people in the regions as well. So, and that's a big thing.
I want to touch on the education part because it sounds to me like there is a genuine education opportunity here. The way you described the ability for, your kind of R&D funding to bring forward additional R&D, which increases the R&D tax return, which in essence covers the cost of the access to the early capital. So the customer is ultimately, at least this is the way it sounds to me, the customer is ultimately getting to make more progress faster without really any real additional cost. Is that what I'm hearing? Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely right. Because what happens is these companies are spending money throughout the year, or they get to the end of the financial year and then, they got to go through their lodgement process and putting together their technical documentation and then their Oz industry submission, tax return. But throughout the year is where it becomes super strategic because they might be spending money throughout the year and they've got an accrual that they just can't access. But if they can unlock that, you can usually solve more problems with capital, and capital can usually help solve that human capital problem, which is a big problem in scaling businesses. So you can bring forward talent. But by doing that, they're spending on some more R&D and increasing that refund. And like you said, they then generate a net return over above the cost of our funding as well. So it becomes this really strategic tool in your tool belt. Now, it's not the only solution and it can't be the only solution because you do need other sorts of financing, but it takes your other pools of capital and really amplifies what that can do. And definitely is a way that we lean into companies and show them and go, hey, based on your real data of what you're actually doing and your expenditure on a loan of this is what it means for you. And a lot of people don't think about it that way, or just, you can see sometimes there's a bit of a mindset shift and they go, oh, wow, I didn't think about it like that. And actually that's really interesting because it means I could do X, Y, Z to get this product iteration into market quicker, or this feature set, or we could develop our next generation of our technology or manufacturing hardware, or we could, pull forward that orbit launch, a few months. And starts going, okay, well, that means commercially we can go faster. Financially, we're making a direct return out of using it. But you zoom out 3 to 5 years and you look at that journey and it means significant value creation in the business as well.
It's a huge opportunity. And I think about the venture industry and how, if I was sitting in a large venture fund today, I would really want all of my portfolio companies to have gone through a process to look at their R&D expenditure, what they're accruing, and do they have relevant things on their roadmaps that they should be bringing forward through R&D loans so that, they can literally get that traction faster. There are a lot of early stage companies, right, that they just don't have the revenue traction yet to raise other forms of capital. I've got a number of investments where the VC market says, hey, yeah, we like what you're doing. Come back to us when you've hit X or hit Y, which is, 5 more customers or, 50,000 a month in MRR, or you've got to get to, 750 in ARR or whatever it is. And so I feel like for some, or for early stage companies that are in that kind of valley of death, R&D funding is a really sensible and strategic opportunity for them to get through to other forms of capital.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people do approach it in that valley of death situation as like a bridge or a runway extension. And that is a use case for it. That definitely is, because you're unlocking that asset and giving more runway, right, to get to that next capital milestone. And it can be also way more strategic than that, because it means that you don't need to raise as much equity in when you get to those capital rounds, or raise the same amount, but use R&D finance on top to actually amplify the result of what you can get out of it. There's a bit of a hot take I've had where when I, wear my investor hat and as you know, I've got a bit of an angel portfolio and got that venture background. But the hot take I'm sort of had as an investor is like, if your companies that you're invested into are conducting R&D and not using R&D finance, they're essentially leaving money on the table, which is actually hurting your return as an investor because it means that they aren't getting as far as they can commercially by using more resources. And I don't think a lot of investors even think about that, because that net cash generation out of using the product in the company means they get more and means you should have a better valuation at the next round. So they are hurting your return.
I think the caveat on that, and I agree with you, right? As an investor, and as you know, I've got a decent portfolio now myself. I think the caveat is that where they're using the R&D to fund more R&D so that it accelerates the growth of the business, the traction of the business, and the additional R&D return that they get covers the cost of capital that they access through an R&D provider. So
yeah,
it is,
100%.
it's a virtuous cycle, right? And if applied the right way, and I think that's the critical thing. I'm wondering, Alex, there must be some really cool tools that you guys have or are developing that can help make that decision process and the opportunity and the benefit very transparent to both founders and investors. Where are you at with that?
Yeah, you're right. We do have some tools in the background that we use internally, and we've got stuff on the horizon to be more public facing. The reality is every business that comes to us that we look at to approve, we use their actual data and feed it back to them and show them what that looks like, which is really important because, we want people to understand this and the impact that it has. Like, we could write transactions all day, every day if we really wanted to, but that's not the reality of why we want to be in this business and why we do what we do. So it is very important that we're transparent and that this has an impact for companies. And pretty much all of our companies, like 95% of our companies, have made a direct return by increasing their R&D refund. The ones that haven't are because they're generally later stage and their R&D intensity or their level of R&D isn't as much anymore. But when you work out the true cost of the financing and we show that to them, they actually go, oh, wow, this is actually lower than bank rates. So it makes sense for us to use this as well. And they use it, more strategically than just a bridge or runway. They actually use it to pad their cash flow and go, okay, next quarter or next 6 months, what can we actually do? What can we pull forward? What can we do on customer acquisition? What can we do to get those better milestones and ultimately better cash flow and valuation at the end of the day? So yeah, the short answer is we do have some tools, and keep an eye out and you'll see some stuff coming as well.
I would love to share them with my portfolio. That's what's going through my mind, right? I'd love every one of my companies. I've got 15 investments now, and I'd love to see every one of those companies accelerate in a way that made sense for them strategically by leveraging a product like this. Let's shift gears and a question about you as a founder. So question number 4 is, what's one thing you know today that you wish, Alex, 2 years ago when you started Advanced, you knew? And how would it change what you're doing now?
Yeah, the one thing I kind of wish I know, there's a lot of things that I know now that I didn't at the start. But the main one that's kind of been top of mind probably lately and has seen us move the needle so much is really distribution is everything, particularly in our business and how we show up. And our business can be like considered quite different to other founders' businesses, right? So distribution has been kind of the big needle mover for us. I mean, in the early days, I kind of obsessed over the product and the process and the speed, but really the real unlock for us has been the relationships, the partnerships, the trust, and the businesses that we funded being actually a real partner side by side with them. Most founders don't want just another lender or a transaction. They want someone who really gets them and shows up consistently that they can pick up the phone to and go, hey, we're thinking about X, Y, Z. We're thinking about doing this. And what does that mean for funding? What would you suggest? And really have that feedback loop. I also wish I'd known that like the founder version of yourself, like in myself as a founder, doesn't stay static. You evolve and it evolves with the business, but that's part of the job. And personally, I had when I started the business, I didn't call myself a CEO because I had this mindset of no, I don't fit that CEO mold. I've been an MD, managing director, or I've been a CFO. And I had this aversion to it to begin with. And, that's a formal title, but, it doesn't mean just one thing. It actually means what we do and what we do when we show up. So, yeah, and I feel like you do need to evolve and the business evolves. And that means just people and who you have in different roles and how you show yourself to the market evolves with it as well.
Mate, distribution, right? Just call it sales. It is the lifeblood of any organization. Every early stage business has to, hit those milestones and grow. And in fact, when I'm speaking to early stage companies and reviewing their pitch or whatever, one of the first things I'm looking for is, what is the distribution accelerating? So are you closing more sales more quickly? Because if you're growing, if your revenue is growing faster, it just demonstrates that the organization has started to unlock its sales engine. And the best form of funding is revenue by a country mile. Not that I don't like R&D funding, I do, but definitely the most.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? And to your point about, as the company grows, you grow as a founder, and as the company grows, your responsibility grows, and being comfortable with the title of CEO is really it's super important, because the role of the CEO has a set of obligations, a set of responsibilities, and also an operating style, right? Some expectations from both the team, the customers, and investors. Yeah. And I think, you've shared two really good lessons there for founders. How do you increase revenue, and how do you be obsessed with really partnering with customers, not just selling to them, but partnering with them? And also finding distribution channels that you can partner with that unlock, more revenue, more customers faster. And then how do you consciously get comfortable with evolving your role, right? And the title that you have to wear, because it has a set of obligations and responsibilities, and the market as a whole expects someone in that business to do that stuff. Yeah. And so the sooner you get comfortable with it, the better off it is for the business. And in fact, it unlocks more value anyway. So great lessons, Alex. Let's talk about what's been a pivotal moment or a breakthrough that has changed the trajectory of Advanced.
Pivotal moment or breakthrough that's changed our trajectory. There's been a few, and we're still on our trajectory. We're 2 years into this journey, just about 2 years. One of the main ones that stands out to me is that when we really looked at our product and the problem it was solving for our customers and our clients, was really that it wasn't just solving a cash flow problem. It was actually empowering founders and their teams to build and retain ownership, but also the downstream effects it had on the people in their businesses, because a lot of R&D is people. It's the talent, the humans that are helping to build these companies as well, and giving them the more confidence to do that while retaining ownership. So when, founders and different advisors and partners, started calling us or having a good experience and recommending us first, not as an alternative, but as a real strategic partner, that's kind of shifted a lot of things in a lot of ways. And that was sort of when we became and felt like we become more than a lending company. It was more like it was a catalyst for innovation, and it was a catalyst for growth and a real partner. And that's where we really see ourselves, is partnering with companies, not just transacting with customers.
Well, the way I like to think about it is, when I look at the value that your capital unlocks for companies, really Advanced is unlocking additional investment into R&D in Australia. And so you're helping to bring forward and fund investment into a whole range of industries and products and services that ultimately provide benefit to Australians. So whether that's you're helping to bring forward investment into space, or bring forward investment into agriculture and food, or into into any range of industries and services, climate tech or whatever it is, that's got a material benefit to Australians. And it's pretty cool to think that you're playing a role in helping companies deliver really great products and services.
Yeah. There's some literature out there that the CSIRO did a few years ago where they found that private businesses that invested into R&D created significant economic development and GDP impact, to the point of sort of $1 invested is $3.50 in GDP growth over 10 years. And that's huge. Like, that's not to be understated. And it's bigger in certain sectors like ag tech and food and some others that you mentioned. And where we are playing this great space where R&D touches so many different businesses, and we get to see so many cool tech and things and how they work and go, wow, how does that actually work? And then work with different founder and entrepreneurial people in their own journeys and their teams that surround them. I see R&D as super important to keeping Australia competitive on the global stage and keeping more people employed here in Australia and doing the things that will bring our country forward. And for our product that amplifies that, it's pretty special. It's really one of the reasons we get out of bed and do what we do.
One of the things that everyone's talking about is AI. And you must see a lot of companies that are investing in AI. So you must get a good sense of what the real trends are and where the real traction is. I'm also interested in, how do you see AI from the point of view of your own organization and supporting your ability to, as a startup, right, to do all the things you need to do?
How do we see AI in our own business? So really the rise of AI has allowed people to get more products into market faster and in different ways. It's funny, I was talking to a founder that we're funding at the moment this morning, and they're in the hardware space, and we were joking about their sort of next Series B raise next year, and about how every pitch deck needs an AI slide these days. And I think every business does need an AI strategy, whether
Absolutely.
You've got AI natively in your product or you're using it in your own workflow and your own operations. We're the latter at this stage. So we do use it in our own workflow and operations to help us really get efficiency in getting, solutions to a client and working with them. And so that allows us to focus on really important things that drive the needle and really cut back on some operational lag as well. We've got different thinking and thoughts about where AI could go on the front facing part of what we do and what we product and the tools that we can give to companies. At this stage, we've got a few things that we have thought about and worked on, nothing that I'm yet ready to unveil, but it's definitely top of mind. If we always come back to our core of like, how do we reach more businesses, do more innovation, help them be more successful, we can use AI to support that, then it only furthers our mission. And that's definitely something that we will do.
Sounds like you should be applying for an R&D tax incentive loan.
Definitely should. Yeah, we do get R&D in our own business, but fortunately, we don't finance it ourselves through our fund. Yeah.
Mate, you're on the journey. You're a founder. You've got one young baby. That's, how old is he now?
Yeah, we've got two sons now.
Yeah.
We've got a 5-week-old, which was born just recently. And our other son, Ollie, he's 2 in February. So yeah, almost 2. Yeah, it's been a wild journey, but I wouldn't change it for the world. I always say Ollie is advanced years born because I really launched the business when he was born. So he's been through the whole journey with me. He's our chief motivation officer.
So how do you sustain your energy, your mindset, your relationships at home, your relationships with your team, your relationships with your customers, your relationships with your investors? How do you balance life, growing a company like Advanced and having an incredibly exciting time at home as well?
That's a big question. And if I know all the answers, I'm sure I could bottle it up and sell it and be much richer than I am. But if any founder tells you it's easy, it's not. Like,
True.
Balancing work, life, family is challenging, but I wouldn't change it as well. So I kind of look at it in a few different ways. You've always got to carve out the time for your partner, first and foremost, and your family. And you need to have a business that supports that as well. Fortunately, being in a founder position, you can kind of tend to craft that in ways, but you've still got expectations and responsibilities from clients, investors, your own team. The things that have really helped me is treating the business, and particularly over having a newborn, I've had to do solid focused work slots and be available for different things. Almost like an athletic pursuit in the ways that, you've got 5.5 blocks, you've got kind of not heats, but it's always the final race. And you've got things to focus on that really move the needle and move the needle quickly. And, taking a step back and doing some of the stuff I enjoy too, because you can't go full work mode. You burn out that way. You don't have that mindset. You don't have that, that status equilibrium to really be your best self for your team, for your company, for your investors. So morning, kind of going to the gym has been really important to let out that stress, going for surfs because that's what I love doing. Spending really solid times with Ollie and Alfred, our sons, and then spending time with my wife and just going through the stuff of hey, how's the household working? What things do we need to change? What do we need to do better so that we can create the space to have more of that? Because without that space and without that perspective, it doesn't really sustain you and you can't really show up. And, relationships and mindset are a nice to have when you're building a company, but they're not a nice to have, they're a need to have because they're really the engine that drives the company as well. And because every company is driven by people.
Yeah. And I kind of feel that if the founder isn't leading by example, the rest of the team can fall into a trap of not investing in those things that are super important. And ultimately it does impact the performance of the business, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I've always been remote first now, and the roles that I've had in our company. And I think that brings certain opportunities, but brings certain challenges as well. But I've always had that if results are there and you're getting out of your people what you need, they need their space to do their best work as well. And, humans run any business, and in different ways, humans can be inherently flawed. You're never going to have a perfect business and it's never going to work exactly the way you expect it will. But you adapt and you roll with it and you create that space and you give people responsibility and you make it really clear on what you need from them. And it's always been not sort of how it gets done or when it gets done, but that it gets done in the way, the way that you agreed.
Building resilience as a founder is a critical skill and focus area. And sometimes you get dragged through the resilience building exercises, and sometimes you can jump into them by creating sprints in different areas of the business. What do you think about the level of resilience necessary to be a founder in a fast-moving environment like we have today?
Absolutely necessary. Yeah, you absolutely need resilience and to be able to adapt to survive, right? Whether it's changing market conditions or something not working in the business from product, I see founders and CEOs and people that lead businesses as perpetual problem solvers. There's always something going on that you got to solve. And that's what we kind of built to do. So having resilience to continue to show up to these challenges and get through those challenges and work through the best way is absolutely needed. And just doing what you need to do to move that needle and get to that next step. If I overlay my own journey, there's certain times, I've had to take time off during certain periods of the day because, our son might have some sort of hospital visit or something. And that just means you have to pick up different things at other parts of the day at night. It's funny when you're a founder and you're leading a business, you never really switch off. It's not a 9 to 5. It's not a, hey, hang up the tool belt and now I go home, or I'm leaving the office and I lock the door and that's it. It's always rattling around in your brain, thinking about different things and going, oh, I need to do that, or we could do better in this area. And that's what I think comes along with that sort of resilient growth and perpetual problem solving mindset. It's a part of the journey.
The journey of a founder is to solve better quality problems, right? I love it, Alex. And given that there's so many things going on, you've really teed up question 7 so perfectly, which is what's next? What's 2026 look like for you and Advanced? And how can people support you on the journey? How can they get involved and get in touch?
What's next is scale, like more scale and more impact. So doubling down on what we've done well, with experimenting on a few different things as well. Products or ways we show up and how we fund. We want to grow more of our national presence next year and deepening our footprint in certain sectors as well, which ultimately means that we'll expand our loan book and support more founders with the kind of capital that we do. And when I step back and look at our mission, it's to help redefine how different Australian businesses get funded and the education of that capital pathway. And to do that with speed and creativity and real impact baked in. So they're the things we're doubling down on. How can people support us? Send us founders building ambitious, really world-changing companies. Send us advisors and investors who want better outcomes for their companies as well, who want to really, amplify what they're doing, and help us move the needle for innovation in Australia. Let's employ more people. Let's solve some of these big challenges that we have as a global economy from Australian tech and Australian innovation. So if you believe in backing founders and Australia to the next level and innovation to the next level, shoot them our way. We'd love to have a chat with them, educate them how we can help. And even if it fits them, if it doesn't fit them, we'll tell them, but we'll point them in the right direction. Because if we can all create a little bit of ownership in building that future and doing it in the right way, I think everyone wins at the end of the day. And the Australian economy wins.
Ultimately, the Australian economy has to be an economy of builders, not buyers. We want to be building products and services and businesses locally, creating jobs locally, rather than funding the jobs, products and services in some other economy, right? Otherwise, our standard of living drops comparatively. And, I think we're in a transition like every economy is. And so we need to be putting our best foot forward every day. Alex, you've nailed 7 questions so elegantly. Let's go to the rapid fire ones and see how you go. Coffee or tea?
Okay. Coffee.
Morning or night?
Morning.
Beach or mountains?
Beach, for sure. I live so close to the beach. I can't not say beach.
Books or podcasts?
Books.
Do you prefer to work from home or the office?
We solely work from home, but we do have the co-working office space. Hard to say. I like the flexibility of home, but I also like the focus of an office.
Love it. Gym or cardio?
A gym.
And legacy or lifestyle?
Oh, that's a combination of both, but you can build legacy while having a lifestyle. So you can build impact while having a lifestyle too. That's the way I approach it.
That's because you live near the beach, right?
It's absolutely because I live near the beach.
Alex, thanks so much for joining us on 7 Questions. It's been great to get to know you and Advanced even better. Certainly sounds like you have a product that makes a big impact and is really valuable for a range of innovative companies across Australia. And so I'd love to see more Australian companies reaching out and taking advantage of the Advanced product. You can reach out to Alex. What's your website again?
Yeah, our website is getadvanced.com.au, or you can find me on LinkedIn. You might see me at different events or different places around, so just come say g'day.
Perfect. Thanks, Alex. Good on you.
Thanks for having me, Wayne. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of 7 Questions. If you'd like to learn more about the founders, you can get a link to the full show notes in the description below. Have a great day. We look forward to you joining us on the next episode.